All right. Welcome everybody to the July 26th ordinary meeting of Hilltops Council, held in Young Council Chambers in Young. May I first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on today. I humbly pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal nations, their past, present and emerging elders. If you are asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. This council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming in council meetings policy. We have nobody in the gallery today. The chair and or the general manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. And attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. I'll go on to the statement of ethical obligations. Councillors are reminded that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Hilltops local government area and the Hilltops Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment as per their oath or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Local Government Act of 1993. Tonight, I haven't received any apologies or applications for leave, but we do have an application for Councillor Stadmiller to attend by digital means. Do I have a mover?
Move that.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Piper. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Sympathy expressions. I ask that the staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of Wayne Hudson, Andrew Halls, Peter Hunt, Margaret Powell, Pamela Lowe, Harry King, Karen Hoskins, Thomas Braddon, Michelle Richens, Mavis Apps, Graham Miller, Judith Jackson, Brian Tierney, Mavis Scott, Edward Oakley and Daphne Dorr. Thank you, councillors. Right, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes, 6/1/23/163, confirmation minutes, Hilltops Council ordinary meeting. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Mackie, a seconder. Councillor Foreman. Any discussion? If not, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Any disclosures of interest? No?
I have one, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
A non-pecuniary disclosure in regard to item 12.5. I, like a number of people in the community, have in my line of work animals, dogs and horses, and I live in residential in Young. I'd just like to declare that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the busload of people must have got lost.
So, Councillor Ingham, you've declared your interest. You'll be staying in the chamber and voting.
I'll be speaking on the matter and voting. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. There isn't a mayoral minute. The next one will go to mayoral report, 9/23/164. It's in front of you. The only thing that I didn't put on was today, 26th of July, there was also a citizenship ceremony this afternoon. Do I have a mover for that report? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Those in favour?
No.
Unanimous. Thank you. We'll go to 10. Councillor meetings attended, and first of all, we have that report there from Councillor Fitzgerald.
Move
10-1. Thank you. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to say anything, or are you happy? All right. I'll put.
Happy to take questions if anybody's got any questions.
Okay. Everybody happy? All right. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Now we'll come to 10.2 and then the councillor meetings attended. I'll go around the room. Councillor Ingram.
Meetings is minuted.
Thank you very much. Councillor Foreman, do you want to add any more?
No, I don't. Meeting is minuted.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, as minuted, plus two meetings. One on the 24th of July, I attended the Heart and Kite Festival committee meeting. And on the 25th of July, I attended the Heart and Kite Festival terms of reference meeting with the General Manager and Chief Financial Officer.
And this afternoon you were at the citizenship.
And I attended the, citizenship ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hewson. Councillor Armstrong.
Meetings is minuted, and Madam Mayor, I'd like to advise that I was unable to achieve the opening of the Young Hilltops Library due to extenuating circumstances.
Thank you. Councillor Piper.
On the 25th, the Bango distribution meeting, I didn't attend because it was cancelled.
Well.
And also I was here this afternoon.
Yes, thank you. And Councillor Dodd.
Just like to add the citizenship ceremony today, please.
Thank you. And thank you, those councillors. Oh, and Councillor, pardon me, Councillor Stadmiller.
Meetings is minuted, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just thank those people those councillors who did attend the citizenship ceremony this afternoon. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Mackie, and a seconder, Councillor Dodd. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 11, Community Recognition Scheme. We have one here from Councillor Piper. Councillor Piper, would you like to speak to it at all?
Well, as it states in there, this young girl lost her mother to this particular disease, and since then she's been going all out to raise money for the society that trying to combat this. And just recently this year she raised $18,500 over 1 week, which I think is a very, very good effort, seeing that the whole of Queensland only raised $5,000.
Yes. An exemplary effort, I would say. Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Piper, a seconder. Councillor Armstrong. Okay, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the GM's report, and we have in front the General Manager, who, as usual, has been very busy. The meetings attended, and then we have the Director of Planning, Corporate and Community, Infrastructure, and the CFO. Do I have a mover?
Question? Comment?
Yes.
Just,
Councillor Ingram.
I'm just not sure. From memory, it's Councillor Flannery who suggested this idea, but then I'm not too sure if it's relevant, given that we've been told that we can't question anyone in regards to any of these meetings. I'm just wondering, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Ingham. Any questions in relation to the calendar need to be written questions to me to ask those questions. That's per the Office of Local Government in relation to this diary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Clarification, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have where are we up to? A mover? Councillor Hewson, and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Those in favour? Councillor Flannery, I realise you've just entered. Abstain. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to 12.2, 23-168, the Community Engagement Program to inform a special rate variation application decision. The recommendation is there. The council note the Community Engagement Program to support council's deliberations in November 2023 on whether to lodge a notice of intent to apply for a special rate variation. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Mackie, and a seconder, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Mackie, do you want to speak to it?
Just going through and reading it again, and then I read it again. It seems that it's just the way really we need to go. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but you know, when there's no money in the bank and you want to do a whole heap of stuff, then you know, and you've got people actually demanding services, then where do we go?
So just to clarify, this report is the community engagement program. It's no decision. It's not a decision on the SRV per se. It's informing the community and councillors as to our approach to engage with the community with the discussion. As stipulated,
one of the many things we have to do, isn't it?
It's one of the things that we have to do for you to consider it in November, pending November, whether or not there's any discussion past November. I'm in your hands, councillors.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I just think it's a comprehensive program which we should elucidate the feelings of the community in light of the serious concerns we have about looking at this issue.
Just like to take the fine off Councillor Armstrong first, please.
My apologies, councillors.
Thank you. Just in regard to this community engagement plan, as councillors will be aware, I sent an email earlier on in the piece, just trying to gauge how many other councils have gone down this path. Given my thoughts as a councillor, I've been elected by the community to undertake some of these things, and I understand we need community consultation, and that's our job. That's our roles as councillors, to make sure we're communicating with our community. The answer to the email was that there was 5 or 6 responded, but only 2 had to do with SRV. So I gauged from the answer I got over the research that staff did, they found 2 cases in the last 5 years that followed the same path. I don't know. I couldn't get an answer as to how many hadn't gone down this path. The other 50 or 60 or 70 councils who'd gone for special rate variations haven't used this process. The reason I mention this, I just like to make sure that all councillors are aware you've got to balance things. When you ask a question in regard to how many people use this, it's an idea and an indication, councillors, of just how worthy other councils thought the idea might be. 2 in the last 5 years is not a great number. One of them is currently now. Community consultation and response from our community will be critical. I mention it to everyone I talk to. And I can tell you the answer when you mention 75% increase in rates and less service levels. No one's real keen about it, I can tell you. We also understand that our financial situation is very dire. But then I've read, and from what I've gathered, someone is going to handpick some members out in the community there to meet with and discuss the SRV, but no council is allowed. Am I sceptical? Yes, I am, councillors. We need to make sure that the information's been given to the community is correct and balanced on both sides of the story. There's no doubt about we need to do something about our finances, but whether 75% increase in our rates for a lower level of service is the answer, I don't think so personally at this stage. Given that the document is there, I don't see a lot of options or any options about mentioning the 75% or how much each year I would like to work on. Is there enough there, or did I misread over the top of that? Maybe I did. So, yep, no, that's fine. So that's just my point in regards to how many other councils or countries have used this process to go about an SRV. And I think we need to be very cautious about it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor. One, you mentioned the community reference groups as one aspect. As you highlighted, it's one form of community consultation, whether it's SRV or other means. Appreciate your view. In relation to a percentage, no percentage has been determined. That's yet to work through. So I just need to say that there is no percentage at this point. That's all. Thank you. And you did not miss it because it wasn't stated.
Well, my comment's correct that there's no options being shown to the public. To what might else?
Well, no, this is our program of consultation.
There's no options in there. Yeah,
that's
correct.
You. Yep.
I would just like to
Councillor
say
Foreman.
that is it possible to also add possibly radio advertising to the program?
The multimedia, the comms programs, it's our usual methods, whether it's radio, any methods at all.
Because I just feel that it is a comprehensive program, but I think we need, because it does affect everybody in the community, I think we do have to have the greatest reach, so we do get the numbers to the workshops and we do get the community engagement. So I think we need to make sure that we reach as many people as possible.
There will be, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Foreman, there will be a comprehensive advertising of the meetings and the multifaceted it's within this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Madam
Dodd.
Mayor, I think it's a great idea. I think we need to do it. I am just concerned about the residents' opinion survey. I am very concerned about surveys now because they are very expensive to do with any reliability or validity. And if we don't have that, then I'm not sure that it's a useful tool. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've asked the Director of Planning to comment upon surveys. As with any information that we present to you, councillors, we present our findings, you know, the manner in which our findings, the weighting and consideration you give, it's up to you.
Director.
I think we need to be realistic about what the survey is. First off, we haven't done a survey like this for several years. And so this is a baselining exercise, and it's only one of many inputs that you're going to have when you come to make that decision of whether to lodge a notice of intent in November. So the results will be calced with those corollaries.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dodd.
Question.
Councillor Armstrong.
I'm just wondering what this has got to do with waste management services.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it was just illustrative of how we worked the workshops and the timetables and the timings on how we rolled it through, geographical spread. We recently went out for a waste survey. It was just illustrative of how we would approach the workshop spread and locations.
My understanding is that those waste workshops at some locations received as many as one person attending them. Is that correct?
That's correct. And some received over 50. So it's, again.
I guess my concern is that if in the past we've seen that this formula can return one person attending a waste workshop, then we might perhaps expect one person to attend a rate, an SRV workshop or a rate workshop. That's hardly an acceptable level of community engagement. I actually find that that this whole process is based upon income rather than levels of service in our service catalogue, and for that reason I believe that this is flawed. I think that council needs to review its service catalogue, the services that we provide. We need to determine the services that we want to provide those services at, and then work out whether we can afford to provide it at that level. If we can't, we then have to go to the community and say, this is the service level that we're providing for these range of services. Are you prepared to pay for it? The community will simply say yes or no. If they're not prepared to pay for it, then service levels must decline or the service catalogue must be reduced in size. But at the moment, we seem to be more worried about the dollar side of it rather than the service side of it. I think that we're approaching it the wrong way.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Foreman,
Will, therefore, going back to what Greg said, when you actually put together the community engagement workshops, will that information be in those workshops? Do we get to see what? Oh, sorry, Jane. Will we get to see what's in the workshops prior to them going out to the community?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think if you go to page 32, you'll see the overall engagement program, and that it has two phases. There's the early engagement phase leading up to your decision in November on whether to lodge that notice of intent. And so that exercise, so that then leads to your decision around whether to go ahead, and aligned with that, whether you wish to amend the LTFP so you have those SRV options all calculated out. And then there's that second phase of engagement, which is around those options. So thinking about this as the first phase in the early engagement, it is about early soundings and just looking at options and getting some community response to, first off, the overall picture, painting the picture of our current financial position, and those considerations. So in terms of all the material, that's going to be available to you. And what we're going to do with the community reference group is run that alongside monthly workshops with you. So you will be aware of the material that they're receiving and how they're responding to. And then at the final meeting of the community reference group, they're going to be presenting to you. And that's because we want them to essentially give the report that you receive and consider. Now, just to be clear, the reason why why it's appropriate you're not in the room is that we want the community to talk to each other rather than at us. And that's because we can get a diversity of views and to have, those reflected in the report back to you. So that's the reason for it, and that's because, to be quite frank, the community holds you in respect. So when you're in the room, to some part, people are going to be wanting to sort of seek your view or to see how you respond to it, and we want that to come later when they report their report through to you.
Comment.
Okay.
The process is even more flawed than Councillor Armstrong said after that presentation. Have you got any numbers to give to these meetings that start this month, and any idea of what might be in front of them? And as for saying the community need to be kept away from councillors, well, the community put us here. So I just can't see how the mindset around that part goes. Really, it really defies what I think of the community that I engage with and the councillors I engage with. But besides that, July is in a few days' time. So what have you got to go to the community with in regards to a SRV?
So through you, Madam Chair. So if you go through those work streams. So
no, I don't mean the number. I mean, what information have you got to give to them?
So we've got a program that's going to be going from tomorrow onwards. We're starting with launching the community reference group. We're planning to have those place-based meetings in September and October. And in the lead into that, we're going to be having workshops with you where we'll be taking the material that we are proposing to take out to the community and work with you with it, so you're familiar with it and understand it, and can be able to respond to questions when we're out there in the community.
Thank you for that. So currently, the answer is nothing. Is that correct? Yes or no?
It's in development.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Ingram.
Point made.
Councillor Flannery and Councillor Piper. Thank you,
Thank you, Madam
Flannery.
Mayor. I don't support this work stream as it's titled. I find it offensive that we've got a community reference group and we're voted as councillors. I think if we're not capable of doing the job, perhaps we should call in a new team. I mean, isn't that what you held council elections for? So we've got to have another community reference group to tell us councillors what we think the community are not telling us. I mean, I don't understand that, number one. Number two, I don't understand where the thorough budget work might have gone to actually tighten the belt, as alluded to by Councillor Armstrong, before we just go out and say, oh, by the way, we haven't been able to run things properly for the last 6 years since amalgamation. We need more money. I think it's, to put it bluntly, a disgrace, really.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Piper.
I'm pleased to welcome Councillor Flannery back because he's just asked all the questions I was going to ask.
Yes, Councillor Stadmiller.
Madam Mayor, just on the financial implications, it says there are no additional financial implications arising from delivering the community engagement program. How's that the case? Have we budgeted the community engagement program into the last budget, or did I miss something? Maybe I've missed something. I'd be happy to be clarified there.
Through you, Madam Mayor, consultation is just a normal part of what we do. So it's business as usual. So there's not a line item that directly says this is a costing against it. We'll be hiring halls as appropriate. They're modest costs. That's just part of day-to-day business in a way in consulting. So that's where those costs will be. Just in relation to the comments made in relation to the community reference group, community reference groups of this nature are developed in that way, away from the elected officials. It is just one stream. Should you choose to ignore or discount or not agree with those comments, so be it. I mean, that's your role. And you will certainly have the opportunity to interact with the community, not only in your usual day-to-day function, but certainly the workshops that we'll be running concurrently while that group is meeting.
Madam Mayor, just one more question, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Stadmiller.
Just on the 24 people, how are they being chosen and who's choosing them? And we're currently being remunerated to represent the community, so are we potentially putting ratepayers in the line of copping a lot of flack over this if they're meant to be out front and centre when that's already our role, as Councillor Flannery mentioned earlier?
Director?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, first and foremost, I just wanted to make it abundantly clear. They are not a decision-making body in any shape or form. Their terms of reference is advisory. So their role is to work through some information in a deliberative way over a series of meetings, looking at very much the things that you'll be looking at over the next 4 months as we go into that November decision, and then providing you their findings. They will be asked to identify areas of consensus where the group agrees and to faithfully report where there's a diversity of views so that you can see from that small sample of community what their views are. Now, the reason for doing this is from going back to IAP2, which is the benchmark for community engagement. And this kind of exercise is right for more in-depth, detailed and ongoing engagement with the community, because it's complex, it's multifaceted, it affects multiple elements of the council, service delivery, finance, the prevailing economic conditions. And so that's what the reason you do a reference group, because you can take people together on a process. Now, their report will be advisory. It will come to you. Yeah, and it's just part of developing an effective engagement program, because you note that one of the criterion that IPART has is that taking a diversity of approaches is a strength. And so this is just one of many ways that we'll elicit community feedback, and not just up to November, but if you decide to proceed to lodge that notice of intent, the entire process goes through to February next year, and there will be a lot more engagement post a November decision.
Now, just a comment before you want to finish off, if you don't mind, Madam Mayor, just talking about Councillor Stadmiller's point about costs and staff attending meetings. It's a bit like the old story of you're making a rod for your own back. You've got more work than can be handled now, by far, yet you are taking on the role of staff to go out to have this advisory committee. I really think that you're making more work and kicking an own goal here. It's I'd be very cautious about proceeding with this. And as you said just then, you know, it's a great way to use the system and do it, and people recommend it. But I'll go back to my original statement. Only 2 councils in the last 5 years you could find used it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Councillor Stadmiller, I take note that a certain allowance is being given for you to have more than one.
Well, I'll have to ask more than one question, Madam Mayor, if that's all right, because I just asked a question, and although it went on the answer for a couple of minutes and there was a very large vocabulary, none of my answer was actually.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
I'd just like to continue. I'd rather the director take it on notice than have a couple of minutes of polywaffle that goes nowhere. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I believe that the question was, how are the people chosen? So I believe that's in the report, but Director, would you be able to expound upon that for Councillor Stadmiller? That's correct, isn't it, Councillor Stadmiller? That was the nub of your question.
Well, how they were chosen, and the fact that they may cop flack, and none of that was mentioned or answered.
Yep.
It just says CRG would comprise 24 members to be drawn equally from 2 strands. Community leaders, strand people representing key communities. It'll be facilitated by staff. So does that mean the staff are choosing the 24? Do we have any say? I'm not sure.
So I'll let the director answer the selection process. But in relation to anyone that is identified as the first 12, they are asked. They can say no, and so obviously they would consider whether or not the exposure, as you've articulated, is something that they are willing to take. And the second part, the second group, they are effectively volunteers. So everyone effectively is a volunteers for the role. So they're not appointed, as in we can't direct anyone to attend this group. They are volunteers. But Director, you want to expound upon the 2 subsets?
Through you, Madam Chair, just briefly. So yes, staff will be picking the 12 shoulder tap representatives, and we're really looking for people that represent a diversity of views, because for this to work, we need a diversity of views, and to have really good community networks, because we want them to share the content, you know, of the workshops with their networks. So another way to get the information out about the community engagement exercise going on. Now, the second work stream is going to be a registration of interest process, and that's going to start end of this week. And what we'll be doing is selecting on the basis of filling the sort of demographic gaps. So make sure we've got as much as possible over the 24, a geographic spread, a gender mix, and an age mix.
On that note, just a quick question, if you don't mind, Madam Mayor, in regard to staff picking these people, probably have to define that down a little bit, given that a number of our senior staff don't even live in our community, and some haven't been here very long. So I don't know whether that gives them the greatest of credentials to be picking people out of the entire Hilltops community to speak at these forums for them. I'm just not too sure if they'd have the local knowledge to do that. I may be wrong. Just a comment.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham.
Question,
Okay, last
Madam
question.
Mayor, question to the
Yes.
General Manager. I've just listened to the General Manager say that these people will be volunteers. Can you just, is that the case? They will be volunteers?
Well, volunteers is volunteer to be part on the group, they will volunteer. One, they have to apply for the expression of interest, so they will be volunteering for their time. And also the people that are identified, they can say no. So volunteer in I suppose the generic English uses of the word volunteer.
But council has a process whereby it appoints or selects and appoints volunteers. There's a form on our website, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, well, that would be covered.
That relates to volunteers, people who volunteer their time.
I use it just in the generic, as in they're volunteering their time. So they're not volunteering to help us with gardens or maintain a hall.
No, they're volunteering to provide a service to council, the same as someone who may be volunteering to do something for council, let's say a community hall or some other facility.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if
are they volunteering to be part of this process? We
will look at the form if it's appropriate governance element to have them fill out that form.
Well, I'm not so much worried about them filling out the form, but it's the work health and safety protections that council commits to for its volunteers. I share Councillor Stackmiller's concern that there's potential for these people, even though they may be well intentioned and quite eager to be involved, they could potentially become pariahs in their communities if indeed a 77.7% general rate increase was applied to offset, say, next year's $14.5 million operating deficit in the general fund, when the general fund only generates $18.5 million worth of rates. So there's about a 77% increase just to square the ledger there.
If that was to be through you, Madam Mayor, that would only be through 1 year, and as I've stipulated, there is no percentage calculations.
No, but I guess you're missing the point that the community dissatisfaction with potentially a 77% increase based upon those figures would be that these people could become the focal points. As they are volunteers, they are subject to council's work health and safety policies, procedures and safeguards, along with council's commitment to privacy. I think that there needs to be a little bit more thought put into this.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
How these people are going to be treated by council and received by the community.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't think you should think of these as volunteers. I think you should see the community reference group as a community engagement. Can I please answer the question?
The general manager, the executive council,
Armstrong.
Who's telling me the truth? Are they volunteers or are they?
Stop. Thank you. Thank you.
You going to deal with the matter in the process for and against, or go into committee, or are we going to vote?
So
you've got a conflict. You've got a conflict, Madam Mayor, with the general manager as the responsible officer.
Excuse me. No, there is no conflict. As I said, the volunteer is in the general term of volunteers. It's a particular volunteer is in relation to the technicality of how a volunteer is applied under the Local Government Act. That was not my intent. It's volunteering of time. Director, you may be able to shed some light on this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Director, please. And then we'll go forward.
So I think you need to think of the community reference group as a community engagement that is limited to 24 people over 4 sessions, because that's all that we can sustain. So all they're going to be doing is coming along to 4 community workshops in a row, and we've ring-fenced to that number because that's an amount of activity that we can sustain with our resource. They are not volunteers in the sense that Councillor Armstrong is alluding to them.
Yeah, thank you, Director. I think you've made it clear.
Well,
Councillor Pabber, everybody has had a fair go. I have been very accommodating in letting people have their say. More than one point that should be made by each councillor. for each motion. I think I have been most accommodating. Okay. Councillor Piper, your last comment, and then we're going to put it to the vote.
To the director, with this committee, the information that they hear at that committee, are they allowed to bring back to their various areas that they're living in, or has it got to be held restricted confidence?
So for you, Madam Mayor, they're going to be encouraged to share the information. We want to get the content out into the community, and this is one vehicle for it. The only thing we're going to ask for them to do is to keep their conversation between the members in confidence until they release their final report, because opinions can grow and change over those 4 meetings, and to give everyone in that membership a fair chance that they wait to the end of the report to talk about the internal conversation. But the information they receive, they're going to be encouraged to share as far and wide as they can.
So what you're saying is that this is just another way of getting information out to the community and also to have a community discussion going. And it's through people who are leaders in the community who will be able to expedite the conversation, which of course, as councillors, we also will be part of the conversation. Okay, thank you. All right. We've had plenty of discussion on this. I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favour?
I'd like to speak against the motion. We
We've had
haven't had
two
speakers for or
against.
against the motion yet, Madam Mayor. We've had comments, we haven't had speakers for.
Okay, Councillor Flannery, you can speak against it. And then
I'd like to speak against the motion, Madam Mayor. I think clearly if we plan a special rate variation, and that's the whole purpose of it, we wouldn't be engaging in this process if the intention wasn't to actually raise rates. So let's not kid ourselves. It's not about fact finding and feel good and whether we think the community might come along for the ride. The intention is to raise rates. That is the sole intention of this process. So we need to be clear about that. If we're going to raise rates, we need clearly to go to the community. I do not support the establishment of a volunteer committee, advisory committee, a reference committee, call it what you may. We have been elected as councillors. We need to get the backbone to make the decisions that we were entrusted to do. What it smacks to me of is the collection of a group of people that are either handpicked or are game enough to put themselves forward that can then be, for want of a better way of putting it, verbaled with information as to why we need to raise rates. That the whole basis or premise of this is to put forward sufficient information, bamboozle them with BS, for want of a better way of putting it, that they need to accept and go out to the community and convince the community that rates need to be raised. And I don't support in any way, shape or form how we're going about it. It is appalling.
thank you, Councillor Flannery. All right, I will put it to vote. Those in favour of the recommendation?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Dodd.
Those against?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper and Councillor Stadmiller. Passed. Yep.
All right, it's 6-5. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors.
Anyone who wants to move a rescission motion with me after the meeting, please contact me.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Okay, let's move on to 12/3/23/169 cash and investment report. The recommendation is in front of you. Received a statement of cash and investments as the 30th.
Move the report with a question.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Armstrong.
I note on the summary, investment summary, that we have $4.13 million still invested with St George Bank at 2.6% invested on the 19th of April, yet on the 6th of April we were able to invest at 4.45 with Macquarie. On the 13th of April we were able to invest at 4.42 with National, and on the 24th of April at 4.40 with Commonwealth. I'm just wondering, why would we renew on the 19th of April at 2.6% for 6 months with St George?
CFO?
Can you hear me, Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, we can
definitely.
hear.
So, at that time, Councillor Armstrong, we would have just rung around and found out what rates were available with what funding we've got. So there's nothing untoward about it. You'll note that recently with that money that came in late in June, we invested that with the Commonwealth Bank and got 5.1%. This is just a matter of phone calls to the various institutions, bearing in mind that we obviously want to make sure that we comply with our policy and invest in AAA rating. But usually I'm usually advised when those rates come up, but you will notice, and I did contact CommBank, that we lodged that $10 million on the 30th of June, which was when it came in at 5.1. We'll always try and get the best percentage we can.
It's the 4.13 million that I'm inquiring about, though, not the 10 million, because I know that if we'd have put it in our current account, we'd have got 3.85% for it, let alone investing it for 6 months at 2.6 when 6 days before we're able to get 4.42 and 5 days after we're able to get 4.40. I'm just wondering why we would invest it for 2.6, what the rationale behind that would be.
So the issue is in terms of balancing out the investments and in terms of where we put those investments. So as you're aware that, yes, we could have actually then applied that to CommBank and loaded CommBank up with more funds. That's something that we need to be cautious of in terms of the weighting of investments, but obviously we are investing with AAA ratings wherever we can. And sometimes Macquarie, you're quite right, sometimes Macquarie doesn't fit that bill. But I can always, as long as we meet our policy, I can always get the financial accountant to ring around to either Com or NAB or one of the others and try and get a higher rate. And I hear what you're saying in relation to leaving it in the, we could have left it at call. I know what you're saying in terms of 3.85%.
It just doesn't seem congruous that 2.6% is a good deal when 4.42 or 4.40 within 4 or 5 days is achievable at other locations, and indeed 3.5 at any time. This doesn't.
I agree, and I've actually raised that issue.
Doesn't seem to be good business to me.
We'll be looking at actually relodging that. I've already highlighted that, flagged that. We'll be looking at relodging that St George. We've just got to make sure that we balance out our total funding and we don't overload one institution with more funds than another. But I do agree that was a low rate.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll be looking at that when that matures the 9th of October, and I've already flagged that issue that you do raise.
Thank you, CFO. Any more comments? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, question of the CFO. Having a look at page 39, the loan payment schedule. When I looked at the previous month's loan payment schedule, there were 5 loans that we're dealing with, and this one says they're only dealing with 2. Can you explain that difference to me, please?
So I'm not sure of your question. That's obviously
the loan payment schedule.
Yeah, that the schedule there at the 30th of June, as you see, is correct.
Well, the schedule at the 31st of May had 5 different loans: the BOOROWA Main Street Prospect, the Sporting Grounds Upgrade Young, the Tarango Bridge at BOOROWA, Urban Roads Renewal, and the STP Conveyance Main Reuse Scheme. Are they still loans or have they disappeared somewhere?
No, they're still loans, and they actually sit on the back of our revenue policy that was adopted by council and went out in public display and now is on the website. So the loan schedule does sit on the back of the revenue policy, which is on the website. I haven't got it in front of me, but it's certainly accurate.
So and that's actually part of the business papers for this meeting.
Sorry?
Shouldn't those loans, as they were last month, be part of the business papers for this meeting?
We can produce the loan schedule every month or quarter. Yeah,
you, Madam Mayor. I think the question is I believe these are the difference in the schedule, as I understand those schedules, is these are the loans payments that have been made. If there is no payment
That's correct.
On a monthly basis. So in the month of June, these payments were made against these loans. So the prior month, 5 payments were made against the 5 different loans. This is not a table that lists all of the loans as articulated. That is correct, Norm. So I think
that's what I was saying. If they want a table attached which has got all the loans, we can keep updating it every month. Yeah.
So that's the difference, Councillor Fitzgerald. This is just the payment. Yeah. Thank you. So just for the information, just to make it clear, so it's not there's not this confusion in the question. A complete table of loans.
Yep. So is that a question to me?
Yeah, no, I was just asking for clarification. Is that
just comparing? The issue I have is comparing 1 month's papers to the next month's papers and trying to find a theme going through.
As I said, it's just the payments to those loans. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Mr. General Manager. I think on that note, I think if the schedule continues to be attached to the QBR, that informs council on a quarterly basis of its progress in terms of its repayments of loans. But I actually asked for this to be included, and the request was for the loan payments made during that preceding month.
Okay, so
that's correct, and we've now included that on the QBR, Councillor Armstrong.
Yep. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 12.4, 23.170, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. And the recommendation is there to receive a note report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you have any questions?
I do have a question. I refer the CFO to page 42, the bottom paragraph. A review of all debts are over 3 months' age is underway. When will that review be completed?
I can't. We'll take some time, Councillor Fitzgerald. So I met with the team and outstanding collections, our debt collector, last Tuesday. We have commenced the process where, as I've stated before, there would appear to be a lot of people who have just ignored reminder notices and statements in relation to rates. We're commencing the other debtors, and that is about to happen. I've gone through those accounts ready for year end for audit, and there's quite a lot outstanding. We're commencing the sundry debtors first, and then we'll be moving on to the rates. The rates, the recommendation from outstanding collections, because of the volume, is that we're going to probably put them into a couple of batches at a 3-monthly interval. There's going to be a lot of work because there's going to be a lot of responses and phone calls. Those letters will be probably out on the street within the next week. So if we're going to get swamped with feedback, and all I can say is a number of these people, there's been no response. And in many cases, we've found people that the staff are telling me that people are breaking payment arrangements. So I've got to get this cash in the bank. I want to reduce our unrestricted cash position. I'm not sure how long that'll take, but I would like to have, my aim is to have that cleaned up by the end of December. So there's a lot of work that we will need to be doing, and there's going to be a lot of phone calls that will hit customer service and the revenue staff. It's just about to start, and I've already instructed the sundry debtors, and there's quite a lot of sundry debtors. People don't seem to like to pay their food inspection accounts. They don't even like to pay their debt collection fees on top of the fees are outstanding. It's quite bizarre, actually, but I think it's indicative of the fact that we need to have a strong, regular follow-up process. And I'm actually speaking to Tech One about producing reminder notices ourselves on a more regular interval.
Okay.
Just a question to you, Madam Mayor. Norm, Director of, I'm sorry. Would you have an idea how many people you are going to have to contact? Do you have a rough idea? Would it be in the hundreds or more or less?
Oh, yes. That? Yeah, no, it's in the hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's quite the volume. Oh. Sorry.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Just a question regarding page 43. Down the bottom it says, as part of the information systems review, the first project scheduled is to utilise the functionality in Technology 1 through the following processes. I believe we purchased Technology 1 approximately 7 years ago. I've never been in favour of the project in any way, shape or form, but why has it taken 7 years to start seeing if we can utilise some of the functionality in it? And that's not probably a fair question at all, but do your best to
I can't. Look, I'm well aware. I'm well aware of the legacy issues and the historical issues the staff have highlighted with me, and we've had a meeting with Tech One, and I'm meeting with them again this week, where I'm putting out particularly around the financial aspects of Tech One, and I'm starting off in the revenue project. So there's a lot of functionality that in fact is available. I can't comment on the past. I'm not going to start shifting blame to the past, but these conversations will mean that there'll be a lot of work for the staff while we actually look at sending out ourselves more rate notices produced by us, utilising and trying to encourage people to use email addresses, which is something that we're trying to do. And there's quite a number of other aspects that we're just starting this process now. And I believe the financial accountant went to a course early in March, and having spoken to some other councillors, there's a lot of functionality that we're not using. And I can't comment on how it's got to where it's got, but I'm determined to move forward in terms of the strategy in that regard and utilise the system to its capacity. And all of the staff are aware of this, and there'll be various module owners in charge of various modules: property and rating, payroll, accounts payable, etc. So I'll keep council updated on that, and I'll do a progress report at the August meeting, and also to update the Audit and Risk Committee.
Okay, thank you, CFO. Yeah, yes, and then Councillor Armstrong.
I'm happy, ladies before gentlemen. I'm certainly
a gentleman.
Sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Oh, your light was on, so you go first.
You know, I often hear rhetoric that's thrown at the staff about, you know, who's to blame. But historically, there are a lot of councillors who have been present for probably those 7 years who really quietly could have asked questions about Tech One.
We have that. I might just
This is the second time.
I want to know is, Norm can't, but can anyone shed some light for us as new councillors on what you asked and what you have learned over the 7 years?
I'm going to defer actually to the former Mayor, Councillor Ingram, because we've had lengthy discussions about this.
And Mr. General Manager, I think we'd better discuss this part of it, of our thoughts on the implementation in camera, because there may actually be some comments that may not be appropriate.
That's probably a great idea, Councillor Armstrong. Because what I'm going to say first off, I don't really care if it's on recording or not. But
okay, well, look, I think with that request, do you want to go into confidential to inform the councillors?
We go into confidential.
Second. So,
all right, we'll go.
All those in favours? Yes. Yep, we go into confidential.
Thank you, General Manager. And we're back to 12.4, 23, 170 outstanding rates and charges.
And there was a question from Councillor Armstrong.
And a question from Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to the CFO. CFO on page 43, there are a number of bullet points there. The third bullet point and the fourth bullet point. Can you please just give us some background on what those points are going to achieve?
It was the third bullet point, Councillor Armstrong, and fourth, was it? The
production of one consolidated debtors report to streamline the debt collection. Can you just outline what the effect of that will be?
So at the moment, and I'm not sure if you're aware or not, at the moment we don't have a consolidated debtors report. They have to be reviewed individually. So if somebody's got water rates and general rates and might have rent or some other sundry debtors, then they have to be manually pulled together. We can't produce one statement at the moment. So I see a lot of efficiencies in being able to pull out. And when I often want information, as last week, when I was reviewing the sundry debtors and I knew some of these sundry debtors had water rates and general rates, it's an inefficient process, and I have to go to different people to extract that information. The integration of the subsidiary ledgers at the moment, the subsidiary ledgers are manually reconciled and balanced and then uploaded into Tech One. I want to streamline that, and that functionality is available. And Tech One have told me that functionality is available. Where in fact I have a module owner who's responsible for reconciling the subsidiary ledger to the general ledger.
What's the nature of those subsidiary ledgers? No?
Sorry?
What's the nature of those subsidiary ledgers?
Oh, okay. Well, there's a payroll subsidiary ledger, accounts payable, each of the property and rating modules. So all of those are subsidiary ledgers, which are then interfaced into the general ledger. We don't interface into the general ledger at the moment, but that functionality is available. So that will save a lot of time. And in addition, it means there should be less manual work in when that reconciliation process occurs. And so this is a bit of a change where some people will be taking on an additional responsibility and being responsible for their module within Tech One. And so I've preempted that information. At the moment, that is done manually, and it's an arduous process.
I don't know anything about technology one functionality, operational capacity, but I would have thought the term subsidiary ledger connotes the fact that you can aggregate them into one ledger. So we've had a program for 6 years that something's entitled subsidiary ledger, but no one's thought to look at how you aggregate them.
No, you don't aggregate them into one ledger. In any major information system that's running efficiently, your subsidiary ledgers.
I'm referring to the fact that I would have thought if you've got a whole lot of sundry debtors, presumably any decent operating platform will bring them together as you're alluding to. Surely someone's worked this out by now.
I can't answer that. It was a question I raised when I started 12 months ago. If you're referring to the fact that I mentioned about the situation where we don't have a centralised revenue ledger. So different reminder notices go out for water, rates and sundry debtors to the same individual. And that may be the case. So a fair bit of work to be done to get that functionality in place. That's different to the subsidiary ledger reconciliation to the GL. That's another task. That's making sure that what hits the GL, which is then pulled out for reporting purposes, extracted for reporting purposes, is reconciled and accurate. And at the moment, that's a manual task.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to move forward, Councillor Flannery and Councillor Armstrong. I'm trying to move forward and improve the use of our technology and make people's jobs more enjoyable, and the fact that they're doing things more efficiently. And I know that there's a lead time. There's an investment in doing that. There's a lot of time and training will be required through those various modules and across these processes. And I'll certainly keep counsel in terms of Councillor Armstrong's question about the verbal note. And I think the meeting before last, I think Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Ingram, if my memory serves me right, were at that, Eric. I can't remember now. It might have been the March, Eric. However, I'll be making sure I report to council first, and that then goes to the audit committee subsequent to that.
Okay, thank you, CFO. We've had plenty of discussion. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour of receiving? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on now to 12.5.23.171, keeping of domestic animals policy. And we see the
Move the recommendation.
Move. Thank you.
Seconded.
Armstrong, and second by Councillor Stedmiller. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to make a comment?
I find it quite infuriating that we get over 120 submissions plus petitions for a policy about the keeping dogs and cats, and we get flat out getting 6 submissions to council's policy that relates to the annual budget. I think that's an absolute disgrace. It shows a very clear disconnect between council and the community.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Any other comments? Councillor Ingram.
I'd make a comment. Just calling for comments in regard to the policy. I think feedback you received from the community just pointed out just how ill-conceived this policy was when it was put before councils in the first place, and should never ever have entered the arena of council chambers the way it is. And it just goes to show how dangerous it can be when you start copying and pasting from other council or country areas. I think the community has pointed that out very clearly to the staff who put this keeping of domestic animals policy forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
I'd like to speak for the motion, Madam Mayor. I think it is a resounding voice from the community that they don't want this policy. And I'd just like to, in line with Councillor Armstrong's comments, note that how easy it was to get community feedback on a policy, and yet we've got to set up a reference committee to find out about a rate rise. I think if we put out the notion that I'm speaking for the motion, thank you.
Okay.
If you put out that you're going to propose a 70% rate rise or thereabouts, you won't need a reference committee to get feedback.
All right, let's keep to the keeping of domestic animals policy. Anybody like to speak against? Councillor Foreman.
I would just like to say, I would like to thank the community for actually speaking up. I know we'd like them to speak up on more issues. But it was never a council's intent to scare or make people fearful of something that was ever going to happen to their pets. We all love our animals. We all love our pets. And I think that we honestly did have the best intentions, and unfortunately that may have got mixed up in the social media, online and things. But I also think I thought long and hard about this. I do think there is place for a policy because it's merely a guiding document. It doesn't override any of the other legislations in place, like it follows the Local Government Act, and we still follow the Companion Animal Act and others. So I think, look, I'm not against if it does. I mean, I'm talking against it, but I'm not. If it doesn't get adopted, that's fine. But I do believe that down the track that there is scope to have another look at this policy, to actually bring it forward. Maybe we do some workshops around the policy, make it a little bit more user-friendly. Maybe it's a little bit more understandable. Maybe we didn't make it clear enough initially. But I think it also serves, when you do have a policy, you do have that guiding document that also protects the animal, and it does also protect the residents. I did consider putting forward option 2, I think it is, on just having the policy put into just for residential areas, because that's where most of the complaints came from. Like, I do note that the feedback is most of the complaints come from young, which is 50%, 57%, and that's in the residential areas. So there is scope. They have mentioned here that it would help to manage the cats in the interest of protecting native birds. People are concerned about the noise and the nuisance, particularly barking at night. It would provide consistent guidelines for the number of animals that can be kept on a property. So I think all in all, you can have one uncomfortable situation with a barking animal.
Sounds like you need a community reference group.
Well,
thank you. Just, Councillor Foreman has the floor.
Possibly. Look, I honestly believe that any feedback is good feedback. I don't know if it's negative, if it's positive, we need to know. And that's how we come to these decisions. This is how we listen to the community. So, look, I would like to see a policy in the residential areas, but maybe the time is not now. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. If there's no more discussion, Councillor Stadmiller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak for the policy, which is that we not adopt the keeping of domestic animals policy. I agree with a couple of the councillors there before that the policy was completely flawed from the start. It made a couple of bizarre sort of notions there, such as not being able to have rams or so forth on a block of land, but the number of offspring had to be controlled when it came to ewes. Well, I wasn't able to work out whether the ewes were impregnating themselves or not, which was just one of several flaws and actually humorous parts of the document. Just in Harden here, I had a complete backlash of people. One of the worst cases was a farmer who lived in the area who had a large number of working dogs, who has a large family who go and work a large property with a large number of sheep, and I'll keep it at that. And it was going to ruin him, and he buys dogs that are worth $10,000 to $20,000, and he would have to house them out on rural land where there isn't a house, and they could have caused theft. The thing that's most concerning to me about the document is that we've had all these submissions, and yet council staff have managed to summarise it to within a couple of pages. I find that very disappointing, that names and addresses couldn't have been removed, and that there been far more transparency around how upset that some of these people were. And the community will never really know. Some of the councillors that go to these so-called confidential briefings, or what I like to refer to as coercive briefings, will know, but the general public who we serve and we've been elected to represent will never know, which is very disappointing. The fact that there's two other options in here to adopt the document at all provides an avenue for councillors when you normally don't see that sort of avenue in a report. The recommendation was not to adopt the keeping of domestic animals policy, so why come up with option 2 and option 3? I find that disappointing, and I see it as a blatant move to try and get something over the line. I have to disagree with Councillor Foreman that there's any need for this in the future, and that if we need this policy and we already have the Local Government Act and the Companion Animals Act, why do we need a policy at all? If we are already covered by those two pieces of legislation. If this doesn't get up, I'll also be moving a rescission motion, as I mentioned there, for the previous item in the business paper, and those people who would like to support me in that can contact me after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. If there are no more comments, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Everyone, Councillor Foreman.
Those against? Okay, Councillor Foreman again. The motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. All right, let's move on to 12.6.23.172, development application stats for June 2023. The recommendation
of the question.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I refer to page 75, DA 2022/0197, 48 Smith Street, Harden, subdivision 15 residential lots. I'm just wondering whether there's been any movement at all in regards to the stop the clock component or any of the information that's been required.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, there's no update from last month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ingram.
Just, well, comment probably more than a question. It's noted in this item in regards to a question I asked in regard to the modification for a DA at the council meeting regarding the subdivision in BOOROWA. And I note the answer's been put in this business paper, and that's very good. And I don't have a problem at all in regard to what was modified. That's not an issue at all. The issue I have is it's a bit like Phil Gould commentating on the football after the fact. When I asked the question at the meeting about the modification, what it was for and who had the authority, the Director of Planning was standing where he is now, and the General Manager was sitting where he was, where he is, and again tonight, and no one had a clue. No one could answer the question. We'll take it on notice, we'll get back to you. So now you come back to me and it's all fine, and it says it was done under the GM's delegation. Well, that's fine, that's good, it's allowed to happen that way. If it happened under the GM's delegation and was in last month's business paper, you would have thought the Director of Planning and the GM would have been able to answer the question when it was asked on the night. This is clearly a case of a staff member doing this, and the way it went into the business paper, the Director of Planning couldn't answer on the night, nor could the General Manager. Just touching on the General Manager's delegation, and that's fine, that's all good. And I have no problem with what was in there, except when we voted on those delegations going to the General Manager, he did say that if he was to use his delegation on these planning matters, he would notify councillors. I think there's been a slip up in the system, Mr. GM. And if it's going to happen, and it's going to happen under your delegation, I would like to think you know about it before it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I get an answer to why no one knew about it last month?
Jim?
I sign a lot of planning documents, so I apologise I don't recall each and every one. But to close the loop on the application of the delegation, I'll make a request to the Director that forms part of the report that if it is under my delegation specifically, it is noted as such, and I will be aware. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
For transparency, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ingram. No more questions. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Councillors, thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on now to 12.7, 23.173, naming of new roads in Donohoe's estate.
Move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded with a question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to make a comment before I?
No, I believe the recommendation is quite clear, including the change from CARPORT to Swancourt.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through you to the Director. I think I've asked this question before, but I'm going to ask it again before I vote. Is there a naming register in place for the former BOOROWA Shire Council area? And if so, are these names out of that taken out of that register?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, there is no naming register for BOOROWA.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 12.8, 23.174, DA 2023 075 shared lot 1539.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller and Councillor Ingram. Any comments? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Next one, 12.9, 23.175, DA 2023 0055, carport at lot 1, BP 245821, 126 Wombat Street, Young. Recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman.
Oh, I'll second it.
And second by Councillor Fitzgerald. Any comments? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 12.10. 23.176, DA 2023 0069, affordable housing for dwellings at 8 Gordon Street. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder?
Seconded with a question.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Foreman, have you got a question or anything? Before I pass to Councillor Armstrong.
No, I do not. I do believe there was affordable housing there. Initially, I used to walk past it quite often, and I feel like it's needed, so it's a little bit more accommodations, which is wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering if the Director can advise us whether or not the laneway, the sanitary laneway that's to serve as access to the rear 2 units, is named, and also if it's a one-way one-way laneway, one-way traffic in there, whether it's two-way traffic.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can't answer it definitively in terms of whether it's named, but I can say that in terms of picking up refuse and postal address is the front properties. So that may address the matter you're raising. Yep. And I'm sorry, your second question was?
Whether the direction of traffic was one-way or two-way in the laneway.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know the detail of that off the top of my head. I'll take that on notice.
Okay.
Yeah, could I have a question of the
Yes,
Director of Planning?
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, could you outline the conditions of what defines affordable housing?
I'm going to take that on notice. I haven't prepared for that. So,
thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 1211 23117 DA 2023-0018 pub alterations and additions.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Foreman, 2 seconds. Councillor Ingram, do you want to ask questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foreman? No. Any other? Councillor Stadmiller. Yes.
Madam Mayor, what are we doing with the car park contributions that people are making when they do a development like this? There's $76,000 or $75,000 that the publican or the owners meant to cough up, and anyone who's been around a pub at the moment knows that pubs aren't going too well. What's council doing with that money? Are we putting it into a car park fund to build a car park somewhere, or a double-storey car park behind Town Hall? I'm a bit unclear as to what it's going to and when something will happen.
If we could build a double-storey car park for $76,000, I'd say go ahead. But Director.
So through you, Madam Mayor, the parking contribution goes into a parking fund, and there's a series of works that those monies can be applied to. In this case, there has been on-street parking works in the vicinity, and this contribution would go to recouping the cost of previous investment from council.
Thank you. Okay. No money. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, just a question, just clarifying something. In attachment 1, there are a significant number of conditions applied. If they don't accept and agree with every single one, it doesn't move ahead, does it, until there's further. Well, what's the situation if they decide not to accept one?
So in terms of,
I know. Yeah. Well, specifically, they're asked to pay $76,900 for parking. If they decide not to, what happens next?
So then it becomes a compliance matter, and we would follow up on it.
Okay.
There are no more questions. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on now to 1213 23179 MURRUMBURRAH. Oh, pardon me. Did I bang? Oh, righto. 1212. Pardon me. 23178 Growing Regions Program, the Hilltops Water Supply Security, and the resolution is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it with the question.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller.
I'm just a little bit worried about some of these figures here as to what they'll cost. Whether we're going to be successful or not is going to be another thing, but the price of building reservoirs at the moment is astronomical, and I don't know if this is going to get anywhere near doing that. So what happens if we get some grant funding and then the council co-contribution? Where are we going to get the other 90% of the money potentially needed?
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the prices that you see before you, the co-contribution is a 50% co-contribution, and as stated in the paper, the co-contribution will be sourced from the water funds of each of those respective areas under the water fund available balances. Of course, we will continue to try and find additional funding if we can. At the moment, we don't have an identified source. If this funding is accepted and we are successful in any of those, we will seek the other 50% on other funding if we can. However, there is sufficient funds in the water funds of each of those areas to cover the 50% contribution.
Just if I can clarify, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'm happy that there may be enough money in the council fund to cover the co-contribution. I'm just worried that this isn't going to meet the market's expectations to construct it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have done these assessments and estimates of the cost based on recent works that we've done in the areas, on the works that we've been undertaking. For example, Young, we were looking at water mains, and yes, we've done water mains in that area before. So we're basing it on costs that we've been experiencing up to now, and noting that, of course, we do have increases in costs, and therefore in these prices, we do include contingencies for that purpose.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Director, there is contingencies within that place which may, which we'd seek to address that risk. Of course, nothing is riskless.
Okay. So how much contingency?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have that information right off the top of my head. We normally, for these kinds of projects, because they're brownfield sites, we look at between 20%, 15 and 20%.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
There are two questions. A voice got in first. Councillor Armstrong. No.
Greg, I'm happy to defer. I'm quite happy to wait my turn, Madam Mayor. As always. Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. I'm just concerned that there's been no mention of this. I refer to the trunk main renewal. There's been no mention of this up until now, and there's been no business case put to council in the past. I see a proposal with a substantial cost attached to it, but I don't see any of the evidence that relates to the identified gap for community infrastructure that the report refers to. Insofar as duplication of the line, I don't see any financial impacts of two lots of depreciation, because we'll have two lots of lines coming in there, not one. I don't see any impacts in terms of maintenance, because with two lines, we'll have two lots of maintenance as well. So I just find that this is a little bit like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. I'm not at all prepared to entertain anything without a business case that looks at both this identified gap for community infrastructure, because I'm unaware of that, and I have never been advised of it. And also, I don't know how the community is supposed to meet the cost of this line going forward in terms of maintenance. And of course, at the end of 50 or 70 years, it's got to be renewed. So that's another $7.5 million if we don't put the depreciation side for it. So I'd very much like something to come back to council as a matter of urgency in regards to this before we go ahead with it. Insofar as the water reservoirs are concerned, I share Councillor Statmiller's concerns about the rising cost of these things. But by the same token, the issue of reservoirs at these locations has come to council in the past, albeit never with a business case.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Just for clarification, it has to be in by the 1st of August and it opened on the 5th. And this is just for round one. And I presume if we got through that, then the stage 2 selection process would be the one where we would have the business case and everything.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the first round is the expression of interest, and the expression of interest merely says these are the projects that have been identified to be considered for round 2. Round 2 is the one where we have to then go into the detail of preparing business cases and detailed costing, and that will definitely be coming before council.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Director.
Question.
A question?
Just in regarding the cost, Director. So do we leave enough, or how do you work out what is left in the funds? So we've had a look at the, you know, the water and sewage for young is around the 7.1 millions in there and 6.6 Harden, say 1.6 in BOOROWA. When we contribute, what a percentage do you leave in there to actually run the sewage and the water that we have to? Does it drain the funds? How much do we leave in those funds?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this would be in the capital works program.
Yeah.
This is capital, not operational.
Okay.
And if you take a look at the council's cash and investment reserves in the report that was provided for the 23-24, what we look at is the first part is the transfer from the reserve is to cover the capital works program, and that has been undertaken. And then the closing balance is what we look at to see if there's any other further funds available for the capital, and we've looked at those funds, and there is in each of those funds sufficient to cover the co-contribution.
And still run the water and the sewage.
Yes, that's an operational cost. We're talking capital investment cost.
Nice. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, yes.
Question for the
Councillor
Director.
Piper.
My favourite subject, water for BOOROWA. Apparently, at peak demand, we've got enough water for half a day. If we put another reservoir in, okay, we've still got the treatment of that. With this new estate, where are we going to get our water from if we don't go to a pipeline? And Councillor Flannery's just come back from Europe and it's all on fire. What are we going to be like here in summertime with half a day of water?
Was that a question or a comment?
Can we get some money? No, we can't. That's there. I'll ask the question and answer it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pump.
Question, what's
Flannery.
my trip got to do with this report, number one? I take offence to the question, but a question to the Director. I wasn't at the workshop, but I believe the sewage treatment plant at Harden was raised at a recent workshop, but I don't see it on the list. And I am aware of a proponent who may or may not employ a significant number of people if they had access to a sewage treatment plant. I'm not too sure if they've approached council. They were encouraged to, but certainly if it's on council's radar that the Harden sewage treatment plant, which I think is 60 or 70 years of age, is due for renewal, is there a reason why it's not in this program?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have provided in the long-term financial plan what the potential is for in 2021 dollars, what it would cost, and we do not have the co-contribution to put the whole bill. This application must come with a guarantee that you do have the co-contribution. As I said, we will continue to look for funds from other sources, but for this particular one, we don't have the co-contribution of $6 million in the Harden Water Fund, the Harden Sewer Fund, sorry, because they are separate funds, to co-contribute to what is required at the Harden Sewage Treatment Plant.
Okay, thank you.
Just to answer Councillor Flannery's question, I just thought he'd be able to tell us how hot it was over there.
Thanks, Councillor Piper. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on to 1213 23-179, and that's the Murrumburrah Bridge naming. And the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald, do I have a seconder? And Councillor Foreman. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to make any comment?
Yeah, I think considering the number of people involved in Murrumburrah, and the small number of people that are in favour of either of the two names, I think this is a good recommendation that we just go back to where it was. I support the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Councillor Hunt.
Madam Mayor, I'd probably be to the Director. Is there a naming register for Harden Murrumburrah?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as far as I know, there is no naming register for Harden Murrumburrah, and there are several areas that are not named at this point in time.
So there's nothing from Harden Shire Council at all?
Not that we can find, thank you.
Have we looked?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foreman.
So considering the naming register has come up twice this evening, how do we go about getting a naming register? Is there a way that you do that?
That might be a notice of motion, councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a similar conversation I had with the Director of Planning. So, Director of Planning?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So twice tonight we've bumped up against the issue that we only have a register, an historic one for young. And so the way forward would be to start with a naming policy, and then out of that a naming register would emerge. So you can talk about the process and particularly how you would engage with particular communities, and then out of that you develop a list of recommended names that we could then give developers or communities to work with as a starting point.
Okay, thank you. You are, Councillor Foreman. Maybe
so. Shall we move a motion to do a?
You do well with the Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Foreman. You could add D, although it's not specifically related to this. I'd probably say, because there's not business on here, I'd probably say you do a notice of motion for the next meeting. And then we can work with you based upon the discussion. That would be probably a better way.
Yep. Yep. Sounds plan. All right. If there's no more discussion, I'll put it to Councillor Stadmiller, did you have your hand up?
I did, Madam Mayor. Is there any confusion around the current name of the bridge? Because the creek's Murrumbullrah Creek, but I've never known the bridge to be called officially Murrumburrah Bridge. Can anyone clarify that?
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware that there is an official name. It is referenced by the Transport for New South Wales as the Murrumburrah Bridge. That's the only information we have as it's mentioned there. It is a Transport for New South Wales asset. And I know that locally people call it the Murrumburrah Bridge, and yes, the creek is named Murrumburrah.
Okay, so it is actually referenced. Okay, thank you. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the update on the Murrumburrah precinct project. That's item 1214 23180, and the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? It's on page 408, I think. Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and second, Councillor Piper. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to make a comment? Any questions since you're the mover?
No, I happened to be in Murrumburrah yesterday and had a viewing through the fences and stuff of the project, and it seems to be progressing, and I quite look forward to seeing the finished product. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question? Sorry.
Councillor Stadmiller was first, I think, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Flannery.
I must have only just beaten him. Just a question around some of the large rocks. They've actually been delivered by truck, and they're blocking part of a waterway that comes down through Murrumburrah Public School and behind some houses there, so that could cause a bottleneck issue. Regarding the play equipment, can the General Manager advise if there's any more funds available anywhere in the budget that can provide something more substantial than that, because I find it embarrassing. I'm just not sure whether we can do better or not.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's no additional funding in the budget that's just been approved. So the answer at this point in time is no, other than for council to decide to reassign funding within the capital program for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I've forgotten the list. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering how the famous fish ladders are going. With the saga of the fish ladders, are we using rocks now, or are we back to concrete?
Can I answer that one, please? The fish ladders are going well, Councillor Armstrong. There's grizzly bears using their paws to swipe at salmon as we speak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Have you anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we anticipated to have 4 fish ladders originally in the scope. The one fish ladder, which is downstream of the MURRUMBURRAH Bridge, if you want to call it that. That one won't be delivered because that was one of the things that were out of the scope. The other remaining 3 fish ladders, is going to be going ahead. The one is an in situ cast fish ladder, which is what we've been in negotiations with the Department of Primary and Industries regarding the fish ladders, because they have a say in what is happening in the creek, and the other 2 will be formed from the rock that is on site at the moment. So yes, there will be 3 fish ladders. One will be an in situ cast V-bottom fish ladder, and the other 2 will be rock formation.
Okay, thank you.
Will we have a community reference group for the fish or not?
It's not envisaged at this time, Councillor. Councillor Flannery?
We had one and they were abandoned, and then the project was changed.
Had a large one.
Could we be advised on what the expenditure on the play equipment is or was?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the budget has allowed for 350,000 for the play equipment, which was that line item that you see as part of the project.
And the photo is what we were able to purchase for 300,000.
No, that photograph is taken uplifted out of the master plan as to what the types of equipment was that was going to be put there. The play equipment has been purchased and will be installed once the heavy machinery have completed the tasks. We have been held up, as the report articulates, with the fisheries permit that is required.
Sorry, I'm confused. So we've got a budget of 300,000, which is correct. And we've got a picture of play equipment. Is that everything we are purchasing for the 300,000?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have the exact equipment list of the play equipment. That is what we've given to the service provider.
That's just an artist's impression.
Yeah.
It's also the, I suppose, the installation, the softball, all of those things would be covered by that cost.
But that's right. That's not exactly the play equipment that we're looking at. That's
as it says, it's the artist's impression. Through you, Madam Mayor, the artist's impression. I don't have a photograph right now, councillors, of the actual equipment that was purchased.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be most interested to find out what we are getting, because I know at the time when we were voting on it, I expressed the opinion that some of the play equipment there was actually in good usable condition and should be retained or relocated to some of the other parks in Harden. And I was outvoted, and I remember at the time, now Madam Mayor said, "I know we need brand new play equipment," and given the time frame that it's taken to get this done and the significant rise in materials, I would like to know what we are purchasing for our 300,000.
I'm sure Alice can. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Righto. If that's discussion, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Flannery. Thank you, councillors.
I voted against it because I think the report's inadequate.
I would have as well, Councillor Flannery.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Move on to 12-15-23-181, Waste Management Community Consultation Outcomes. The recommendation is there that we receive and note the report. Do I have a mover? Okay, Councillor Foreman, thank you. And a seconder? Did I hear Councillor Hewson? Thank you. Councillor Foreman, do you want to make any comment or?
I would just like to ask, what happens next? Where do we go to from here? So we've got the report, what's the next steps, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report was just to inform the outcome of the consultation process. What will be coming back to Council in the August or September meeting would be more details around what services we're going to be going back with in terms of putting it into the tender, etc., based on the consultation that we've got so far.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 1216 23-182. That's the Cunningar Road, Barwang Creek Culvert repairs. And once again, the recommendation is there to receive and note the reports. Do I have a mover? On page 426.
With the question.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller, and seconded Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Stadmiller, do you want to?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just the capacity of what's been put there. I didn't get a chance to have a real good look at this report, even though I've driven over the road a number of times, but haven't within the last month. What's been done underneath, is it like for what was there, or has it been enlarged to carry more water now? Thanks.
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as indicated in the report, this work is undertaken under the immediate reconstruction works and is under the approval of Transport for New South Wales. As it is a Transport for New South Wales emergency repairs work, it is like for like.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I question whether it's like for like, because I believe the road should have been stripped back far more, and I believe, in my humble opinion, that it might be subject to slumping, because all we did was fill in the collapsed area, and we didn't cut back the area on the right-hand side heading north from BOOROWA. That said, the 400,000 estimated cost that's listed on page 431, will that be funded all by RMS, or does Council have to pay any of the repair bill?
Through Madam Mayor, the repairs are ongoing, so that is an estimated cost. That is the cost that we have provided to Transport for New South Wales, and my understanding is that they've accepted that. So it will be Transport for New South Wales paying for those repairs under that immediate repair works, and not anything from Council.
So on what basis do we have to lodge a claim for the money?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the report that we have to provide to Transport for New South Wales details by line item the actual costs that were incurred during the repair. So we take out of our finance system all the money that we spend repairing that road, and that's what we submit to Transport for New South Wales for their review and their approval at the end.
So we moved our big loader in there 5 times, and we're confident the Transport for New South Wales will pay for the demurrage of the loader 5 times, and similar to and fro's of all the machinery and plant and equipment on this job. We'll get full cost recovery on all our work.
Through you, Madam Mayor, at this stage, it is anticipated that we will get full cost recovery for the repair work at that creek.
Okay, thank you.
I asked the questions because whilst the job that's been done has been done assiduously, I think it, in my humble opinion, is and this occurred on the 13th of March, and here we are, beginning of August, and it's only just been repaired. And for a B-double route to take that long is by and large been due to the lack of organisation. And to have the number of times that we started the job, left, came back, started, left, I think speaks volumes about what's going on. And I don't say this lightly, but on one day there was a excavator driver and 2 stop and go men, and he did nothing for the day because no trucks turned up. And he left at 2 o'clock. So I'd be very concerned if we have to pay for any of this bill, but that's exactly what happened. And I drove past there. I have a tenant in a house next door, and he told me recently that he had to go and ask one of the stop-go men to stop throwing the rubbish out on the road. His ute was 2 metres away. Could he put his rubbish from sitting there eating in his ute and not throw it on the road?
All right, thank you for that comment. If there's Councillor Mackie. Oh, just your light on. There are no more questions, comments. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Flannery. Councillor Stadmiller, were you were against? Thank you.
No, I moved it. Sorry, Madam Mayor. I was for.
You were for. Yes, I thought you were. Thanks. Thank you. All right, let's move on to 1217, 23183, the works report.
Move.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Okay, thank you, Councillor Ingram. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to make any comment before I pass it to Councillor Ingram?
No, can I have a question of the director, please?
Yes, certainly.
I noticed that one of the things you do in open spaces, works completed, includes the monumental cemetery. Specifically, could you just outline what you do at the monumental cemetery? Briefly outline what you do at the monumental cemetery, especially well, I'm talking about the one in Young.
Maybe you want to say that? Or the works we do at the monument cemetery. That's just the normal pruning of the roads, isn't it?
Pruning, mowing, and just general maintenance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as with the other cemeteries, we do general maintenance, which means pruning of the rose bushes that are there, mowing, etc.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question, I was approached by a member of the public to say that visitors up there who are doing what do they call them, heritage things or looking for relatives and so forth, think it's in a state of disrepair. Does it fall to us to in any way to repair any of the monuments or straighten up things like that? Is that to us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if we're talking about cleaning of the headstones, etc., that's not part of the maintenance that we do on the site.
Is it anybody's job that you know of? Sorry?
And I think you're talking about the monumental, sir.
I'm only talking about the monumental one, yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it is the owners of that structure.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, just questions and comments on what's been done about what's not been done. Just in regard to Bribri, and I mentioned to Madam Mayor at a meeting the other day, there was, when you're on your way out to see the new railway line crossing, safety features implemented, that there'd be some people there wanting some roads looked at, and you acknowledged that. I'm told that you were spoken to by a gentleman out there in regard to a couple of roads, Shorts Crossing Road and Crisp Lane. And at the time, and I think it's still there, there's the grader in Coleman's Lane, apparently. But I'm just wondering, Madam Mayor, how you got on with any action being taken about those two roads, because I had a phone call today saying nothing had happened yet.
We did have a conversation, didn't we, Mr. General Manager?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I recently met with the Bribri Progress Association, and the roads you mentioned, Councillor Ingram, were the roads. There's also North Street. I've got North Street, Crisp Lane, Shorts Crossing Road. So
what's happening, Mr. General Manager?
I believe the team is going out to have a look at those roads.
They don't want looking at.
Sorry. So they're looking at as what may need to be done. But I'll pass to the Director Manager. Is there any other additional comments other than the task to do?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ingram, yes, Shorts Crossing is on the list to be graded, and we have looked at Crisp Lane. There's work coming there. We haven't looked at North yet, but we will definitely look into it.
Shorts Crossing and Crisp Lane are the ones that continually kept coming back to me. So they're the two that I was made aware, Madam Mayor was made aware of, so I just thought I'd ask. My second question is in regard to Rockdale Road. In July 2021, I was at a meeting with the General Manager with a business owner down Rockdale Road and discussed the state of that road and what work needed to be done to upgrade it so they could expand their business further down the lane, and there's an emergency shed down the bottom of it. And now we have a major developer developing the corner of Rockdale Road, which is all great for Young. It's fantastic for everyone. The feedback I'm getting is from both organisations there is that they need a design for the road done by council, which was stated that we'd look into that in 2021 because we have to get a grant to be able to get the money to do it. And to get the grant, you need to have things shovel ready. So you need a design to be done first. Here we are in June and July 2023, and we have a developer doing major works there and trying to work out his designs for what he's got to do onto the road. But they're having trouble, and so is the gentleman further down the line who employs a larger number of people because council still hasn't done design for Rockdale Road. So my question is, it's pretty straightforward. The answer, we haven't done it yet. When are we going to get the design done for Rockdale Road so these businesses can continue to grow and we can have that road turn into what it should be? We're never going to get grant money for it if we don't start. And the basic start is getting the design done. We've had 2 years and we've done nothing. Is it in the pipeline somewhere? Please.
Rachel? Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor, the design for Rockdale Road is currently being undertaken, and we will continue to complete that design so that we are shovel ready for when any grants make themselves available.
Thank you for that, and council can be provided with that design when it's completed. Is that correct?
I'll certainly provide through you, Madam Mayor, when the design is complete, I will advise council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have more, but I'll raise it later in the questions and answers. Thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor, of the Director.
Councillor Parker.
This road, I believe, I was contacted by the same gentleman, I believe, but also this road, I believe, goes into the rural fire station. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, are you referring to the Rockdale Road?
Yeah.
Yes, yes it does.
Well, that should be a big priority because we'll need it come summertime.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Mayor, there has been maintenance work done on Rockdale Road to ensure that that is accessible for rural fire services.
Okay.
I slipped up on one thing. I'm sorry.
Councillor
I'm sure
Ingram.
it's in this report. I just need to check. It is in this report on page 446. Emergency roadworks due to storm events. Petticoat Lane, Matthew Street, second from the bottom. I happen to live in Petticoat Lane. And wow, this made an emergency roadworks due to storm events report. There was 2 potholes. There's 3 shovels. It would have took more time to put this in a report than it did to fill the shovel hole. And by the way, one of them's back. So the detail really has blown me away.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Question.
Councillor Armstrong and then Councillor Flannery. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through you to the Director. I've had some requests for work to be done on what I'm going to call the cemetery lane at Kurawatha. There has been some grading works carried out at Kurawatha earlier this year. I suggest that the grader needs to pay a little bit of a visit and not only have a go at the roads, but perhaps some of the drainage, because there's next to no drainage at all on most of the gravel roads at Kurawatha, and they need to be degrassed, and the grader blade's quite capable of doing that. Certainly, Cemetery Lane is one that needs a bit of a look at now. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've taken a note of that.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery, then Councillor Foreman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I refer to page 444, the photo on the top left corner. What is being depicted there? What is the purpose of that photo? On the top left.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Flannery, that's just a photo to show you that the drainage is in progress in Boyo Road, basically. Just what staff has provided us as proof that they're doing some of the drainage work.
By the looks of it, to me, it looks fairly as though it's battered down smooth. It looks complete, yet I can only see half a height.
The work at that stage wasn't completed yet.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I would hope it's not complete when you can only see half a pipe, because I think that illustrates why we've got a lot of road damage, is because many of our pipes are actually half full, if not full. So thank you for the photo. It illustrates one of the key problems with our roads and why we're spending so much money fixing them if our pipes are full.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sundry.
Through
Councillor
you, Madam
Foreman.
Mayor, just for clarification,
pardon
that
me.
photograph was prior to the works commencing, and that is one of the things that we are addressing as we're going through the maintenance of the road.
Thank you.
Excuse me, but that's not prior to works commencing. I can see clean dirt there. Works have commenced.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foreman.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've had a couple of inquiries in regards to the on Lynn Street, the tree in front of the post office. Apparently someone has fallen over there and injured themselves. It has the orange barricade around it, but a few questions have been raised as to what we're going to do about that tree in front of the post office.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Foreman, we've had our arborist who was off sick. He was in hospital in Wagga for a time. He's had to go back and to assess the tree and give us guidance as to what we've done. That's why we just sort of close it off and waiting for him to come back. He just came back this week, so we'll give attention to it.
Christian,
Yes, Councillor.
following on from that response to Councillor Foreman, I'm just wondering, does council still undertake inspections of its roads, footpaths for defects and the like? We have a system whereby we do that, do we?
Yeah. So through you, Madam Mayor, we do have asset inspectors that do go and do these inspections. The road inspections, of course, have been part of the ARRB. So that has, the asset inspectors aren't looking at the roads unless it's been requested specifically until we get that report.
But we're still doing asset inspections for uneven footpaths, tree roots, and the like.
Yeah.
But we're not doing them on roads. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying that as needed at the moment, we will continue to do inspections on roads if it's required. So if we need to go and inspect, if there's a complaint, for example, if we go and there's a complaint about a particular road, we're not waiting for the ARB report to tell us what is wrong with the road. We send our asset inspectors.
Do we do that on a regular basis? Do we have any sort of inspection schedule at all for our roads and footpaths, street trees, playgrounds and the like?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, we do have a schedule that we do inspections, and we prioritise those against the requirements. Like playgrounds are important to do those inspections as they're legislated. So we do have those.
And we act upon the results of those inspections.
That is correct.
How long do we normally take to act upon the results of the inspections?
I can't give that answer to you today, Councillor.
Okay. Is there any chance we can get a copy? In a previous life, the council was supplied with a schedule that indicated when assets inspections were done, the frequency. And if we can get a copy of that, please. Great, thank you.
I do remember some months, actually it was about a year ago, it said that roads are inspected monthly, but I'm not aware of that. Question through you, Madam Mayor. When will the report of our touring road vehicle come to council? One question. Do we still have traffic counters on some of our roads? And do you collate the results, or how frequently do you collate the results?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we were in discussions with the contractor undertaking the road inspections works. They are busy collating all the data and the video footage, etc. It is anticipated that either in August or September, a report will be brought to council, depending on whether they can finalise those reports. So we are waiting on them. As far as the traffic counters, yes, we do have traffic counters that is managed by our manager, assets and engineering, and I don't have how frequently they download them, but we do have locations of where they are.
And so, well, could we be advised at the next meeting how many roads have traffic counters on them, and how frequently the data is collated? Do we have a a budget for pushing up gravel, or do we have an idea of how much gravel is pushed up at the moment?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, Councillor Flannery, we do know how much we've got currently. Unfortunately, I don't have that figures with me tonight, but I know we do have it.
Thank you.
Question to the General Manager. Sorry.
Councillor Mackie, and then
question to the General Manager and then to Pauline. About 3 weeks ago, I spoke about Heathfield Road, and that there was a complaint about someone actually doing some works on the road with their own machinery. And I just want to know, out of interest, what's the process when we make a complaint like that? How do you approach that person, and then what's the outcome of them doing the right or the wrong thing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, for anyone working in a road, you need a permit to work in a road reserve, so they have to apply. If we made aware, we have to make inquiries. Effectively, if it's post the event, were you in the road? No. What can we do? We have no evidence of that. So basically, we follow the process. Once you've made the inquiry, usually people stop it because they've been notified. But that's effectively the process as we could undertake it.
Would it be fair to say, Mr. General Manager, that private individuals were doing that without permits, and there was to be an accident happening where they were working, or doing whatever they were doing, they want to have really, really good insurance. Everything's okay till something happens.
Which is why when we're ever made aware of it, we do make inquiries of that. But yeah, they are not covered by our insurance if they're doing something that is not legal.
Councillor Flannery, I think Councillor Armstrong was next, weren't you?
I said a question for the General Manager. I asked a question in the works report in April that was taken on notice. I haven't received any advice back in regards to that. That was the anticipated output of our gravel reshooting program for the former Young Shire area between the end of the QBR period and the end of the financial year. That is, how many kilometres of gravel reshooting did the council hope to achieve, or could it achieve, from that period on, given that we're actually entering into winter time and significant volumes of rain? But nothing's ever come back. There has been some discussions in confidential briefing documents, but I'm remiss to talk about those because they're very secret. They're very confidential. So
I'll
ask the question at the council meeting. Can I get a response back at the council meeting, not the confidential?
Absolutely. I'll defer to the director. I actually don't recall that in-depth question, but
I did actually check it yesterday on the videos, matter of fact.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying, I just, those types of questions I ask the infrastructure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the report that you have before you is everything that was achieved through the financial year, because the works report provides all of the gravel resheeting that was done over the entire year. Yes, potentially the report wasn't provided in April, but the report that you have before you includes all of the gravel resheeting that has been undertaken in the financial year for 22-23.
I might just jump in there and I'll be able to assist you with some of those numbers in another couple of items when they come up.
Director Ingram.
Yeah, I will be able to, because as difficult as it gets made in the business papers with the reporting on the gravel reshooting, and you do have to spend some time to track down what was done and when it was done. It can be, and I've done that, and I'll speak to that when I come to my questions and answers that I asked on noticed. But I'll help out then.
Thank you. And Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of other questions. Glen Eyre Road, which I brought to council attention about a year ago, is also again in a state of disrepair and hasn't had any of the drains cleaned out on it. Is there any plans to do work on Glen Eyre Road? I'll let you take that on notice. Grader hours, could we get the grader hours for the next meeting, please, for each of the graders and which depot they work out of for the last financial year, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I ask how that number is related to policy? Like how what the number, what are you looking for? I'm asking not to be contrary, I'm asking how we better answer some of the questions with the amount of detail that you're asking.
I have a general knowledge of machinery. I'd like to know how many hours machinery does in a year so I can make qualified decisions on plant replacement when it comes up. And I think, given we've just finished the last financial year, it's as good a time as any to extract the information from Technology One and
thank you, Councillor.
Provide council with information that might be useful to help them make decisions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. If that's enough, I'll put it to conflict of interest, but it was raised by Councillor Mackie and about Heathfield Road. I own land opposite Heathfield Road and I most certainly didn't touch Heathfield Road. But however, all the council drains have now been removed and all the water now runs onto my property. So is the council seeking the person who did the road to actually reinstate the drain so the water doesn't run onto my land and can go onto their land, saying that was the intent, was to stop the water entering their land and now entering my land?
I think we'll need to take that on notice to assess what has occurred.
Okay, thanks, councillors. If there's no more, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on. Correspondence for information, 12/18/23/184 releases.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Sedmiller. Seconded, Councillor Foreman. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 12/19/23/185 committee reports requiring no action.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Stedmiller.
Second it with a question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. Your question?
The next meeting of the traffic committee, when is that scheduled? Look, I'll send an email, but the Jack McCarthy Bridge was subject to flooding back in the summer storms, and during the repair work, the little badge that said Jack McCarthy Bridge was knocked off. We get it reinstated and perhaps a more appropriate position. I think it was accidentally knocked off by the workmen, but also the signs either side of the bridge haven't been reinstated. I think the warning signs or whatever. But one of the McCarthy families have given me the details of Jack McCarthy to provide.
Okay. Henry, if there's no more, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to 12/20, the action summary report, and the recommendation is there. You'll have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder.
Question.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Foreman, do you have any questions before I pass to Councillor Armstrong? Okay, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's at the item number is 15.2-22-31, purchase request for a purchase of a council property. First received by council 23rd of the 11th, 22, and we're still awaiting evaluation from the valuer. I'm just wondering, have we actually engaged the valuer, and when the valuer is likely to provide that? Has he given any indication?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure that we've still got our CFO online. Norm, are you there? The question.
I am.
Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yep.
over to you. Thank you.
So I've spoken to a second valuer who's currently on leave, and I'll give that person a follow-up, which was referred to us by a local lawyer. So neither have come back to me with any indication of when they could commence the valuation work. I think I'm not sure if I mentioned that council has engaged as part of the annual financial statements audit for all our land and building properties, Asset Val, which is owned as a subsidiary of Marsh, which owns JLT, our underwriters, and they are commencing that process right now. So, in fact, as part of the valuation, which then also be using the financial statements and insurance, I may be able to engage that valuation through them. That'll be a list of all our land and buildings. There's about 500.
So from that, do we have a valuer engaged right now? Do we have someone on the line ready to go, or are we still
all I can do,
someone?
Councillor Armstrong, all I can do is make another phone call and send more emails.
No, Norm, have we got someone engaged now?
No, I've spoken.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, I'll put it to the floor.
Question on
Councillor Flannery.
I'm looking for a question for the Director of Finance. When will we see the report on the gravel crushing plant?
Sorry, the report on gravel crushing?
I asked for a report on the viability or a business case on council purchasing a gravel crushing plant. It seems to me that we have a big budget that we spend on gravel roads, and one of the problems we have is we can never get anyone to crush it. But perhaps we should be buying our own gravel crushing plant, because I don't think the roads are going to go away, and we might then be able to service them. And I asked for a report on council purchasing a gravel crushing plant, I think back in May.
Let me check, Councillor Flannery, and if that's the case, I'll get a report ready for council.
Clearly it hasn't been
I'll
started.
make a note of that now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director. If the
Councillor Foreman, just to the CFO again, back to the purchase request for the council property. So that was November 22. So what is the issue with trying to get a valuer in? Are they none available, or is there something that we don't know we need to do?
So is that a question to me, Councillor Foreman?
Yes, please.
The information I have, having contacted about 5 valuers and 2 that I thought were more certain, I won't mention their names, is that they appear to be extremely busy. So some of them have said can't get to it now, maybe by November, etc. I was hoping this second person that seemed a bit firmer, I think that person's told me they're on leave to the end of this week. I'll then touch base with them again, and hopefully I can, I've already made arrangements with our property officer for them to be let in, and hopefully I can try and secure a valuation on that property. That's where it currently stands. I can only ring and email people so many times to try and get a start.
Hey, thank you.
With interest rates at 5% and an offer on the table, I think we should do a lot of ringing, because we can use.
Sorry, what was that?
Okay.
With interest rates at 5% and an offer on the table for a serious quantum of money, I think we should do a lot of ringing.
I might add that property is not attracting any rent at the moment for about the last 13 months as well.
Okay.
Is it because people don't want to deal with Hilltops Council or another issue?
No, it hasn't been that case.
I'm aware of private people.
No, it's not. It's not that at all.
Well, we haven't been aware. Sorry, pardon. Do you know someone?
Within a fortnight. Make a phone call. That's it. These people that the director ringing, they just don't want to deal with Hilltops Council, or what is it?
Well, that's not my understanding, but I welcome any.
This is nearly unbelievable. It would take so long to get a value.
So, Councillor Ingram, if you'd like to give advice, perhaps to the
I'm a
GM
councillor,
at some
not a
stage.
director.
Okay, if I'll put it to the floor, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll turn to, there aren't any questions with notice, and 13.1, 23, 187 questions on notice from Councillor Ingram. And the recommendation is there that they receive and note the report.
Move that with some questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ingram, and second by Councillor Flannery. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we'll go through the questions. Let's see, where did the money come from for Coringa Lane? The response from staff was, oh wow, from the BOOROWA reshoot budget. If you go to the answer to the question H, you'll see where it clearly states there was no BOOROWA gravel reshoot budget because it was reallocated. So it's pretty hard to swallow the answer for question A, just to start with. That's just the basic. Hello, A says we did it out of the gravel reshoot. H says we didn't have one. You want to touch base on that one at a time? Explain that to me.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ingram, the budget that we get it from is the local unsealed roads budget in each area.
We got it from the BOOROWA reshoot budget.
Yes, I know it says BOOROWA reshoot, but it's the local unsealed roads budget that we use it from.
So the answer to A is incorrect.
It could be operational. It could be under the capital budgets. That's where our staff normally books it under.
Well, we're going to touch on that area in just a moment. So I'll take what you've told me there and I'll just I'll leave the cross next to the answer because it didn't quite answer the question. B, where is the money coming to reshoot Hartwell Road? I thought it was at the BOOROWA end. It's obviously in Harden end and it was out of their reshoot budget, which is the same wording, reshoot budget, as was used for the BOOROWA one. So that's out of the reshooting budget, not out of something else. So reshoot budget has two different terminologies in A and B.
Local unsealed road budgets.
Reshooting budget. We have a definitive reshooting budget.
The reshooting budget for Harden was taken away, the 91,000.
No, it wasn't. That was BOOROWA, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor, you're right, sorry.
Yeah,
you're right. I apologise.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll go to question C. Where is the money and funding coming from if it has not been allocated for reshooting? And the answer is, and we seem to have now, it's gravel reshooting or patching. Seems to be gravel reshooting in one end and only patching back over here. But funds for that was out of the storm damage, which was mentioned before. That's great. The local unsealed budget's actually mentioned here in this answer, capital and operational. So my question in regards to that answer is, when I asked for, I believe, was a breakdown of the storm damage funding. So I'd like a report on the funding that we received for storm damage, how much it was, when did we receive it, and where has it been allocated, and where has it been spent. That. So then we can have a clear indication of where the storm damage budget went to. Local unsealed budget, capital and operational. So you're saying to me in that answer also that we're using maintenance funds for that work?
Yes, it depends whether it was the maintenance grading part of it or whether it was storm damage.
It was reshooting. It's listed as reshooting.
So whether we need reshooting or whether we needed grading forms part of that storm damage or either capital.
In the capital report, in the document that we get, it's reported as gravel reshooting. Okay, that's what you've got it listed down there as, right? And you're saying we did out of maintenance. I don't believe capital works can be done out of those funds, Mr. General Manager. I believe we could have a real problem. But I'll continue on for the time being because it's been stated clearly that there's been capital works done out of maintenance funds and operational. Because you can't have report after report after report saying it's capital works, gravel resheeting, then tell me you funded it out of operational money. So there's an issue there. So we'll work on that, and someone can come back to me and clarify that for the sake of our council, because that is a definite no. Next question. Has money, funding, been allocated, moved, and by whom? No unauthorised allocation, moving of funds has occurred. Well, on question D, we just got that to be determined yet, because I don't believe that's the case. But an independent audit that might be worthwhile coming might clear that up. Question E is interesting. What were the remaining funds in the Young area for gravel resheeting? And I understand it's an approximate number, $83,000. So, goes back to Councillor Armstrong's comment about finding just how much gravel resheeting was done. I mentioned at the last council meeting they've done some numbers. So I went back to those numbers and did it all again, and in the March quarterly budget report that we were asked to vote on, it was indicated that we spent $398,000 out of the $644,000 that's allocated for gravel resheeting in the former Young area. So I did some math. We looked at kilometres, and you can't get a definite number on the kilometres because it depends which report you read. It seems to change, but near enough figures was 29 Ks was done, albeit in little patches. It works out about roughly, round figures again, $13,700 per kilometre for gravel resheet. So then we get to the end of June, and the report now tells us that we have 83,000 left. So we had, at the end of March, 246,000 left in the gravel resheeting budget for Young. In that period of time, till the 30th of June, I'm being a bit generous, but I'll give 7 kilometres has been done. 7 kilometres. Take the 83,000 off your 246, you mathematicians, and you come up with 163,000. Divide that by 7, and you come up with a number of $23,000 a kilometre. I am having great trouble having too much faith in these numbers that are being presented to us. You cannot tell me, but someone's going to have to explain, where the money from the Young gravel resheeting program has gone. I'm calling for the report to back up the costings that have been given to council in these business papers, because that doesn't just add up. Would you like to make a comment on question E? Or on your answer?
To you, Madam Mayor, no, thank you for that explanation, Councillor Ingram. We'll come back to you on that one.
I wait your explanation.
Yep.
Thank you. Question F. I asked why it seemed to be that they do 100 metres here or 70 or 80 metres here in the former Young area, but when we looked at the gravel resheeting program that was undertaken in the BOOROWA area, there was one of us 12.5 kilometres full length. And how could that be cost effective doing little areas like that? And could we have some costings on that if that was the case? The answer is each R of road requiring resheeting is attended to on a case-by-case basis. I read the answer a couple of times. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but the one thing I take away from that is we're still doing band-aids. We're still going to throw out 300 metres, 400 metres. We've been Hilltops Council now, and to go to the point of Councillor Mackey's comment earlier about, surely something could have been done about this before. I've been bashing on about this council from 8 years ago. We still have no schedule of works for gravel resheeting. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ingram, for the last financial year, pretty much I'll agree with you. Going forward, I can provide that to you in the next council meeting.
That will be appreciated, because going forward every month with this business paper, I will be expecting what's being done and the costings on a monthly basis. So I don't have to go through this process again and call for an audit to be done. So that's very good to hear that we have got a schedule of works and we're not going to be going out doing patch-up jobs. Question G, allocation, funds and funds spent. Funds used for either our local unsealed capital operation. Again, we've got trouble. My question was where did the funds come from? So I consider that completely unanswered, but again, let's have a breakdown of the storm damage funds. How much we received, where they were spent and allocated. We have no financial information made available to us to understand where the money is going and how it is being spent. Gravel reshooting in BOOROWA, where did the money come from? Gravel reshooting, gravel patching. Well, I wouldn't call 12.5 kilometres and 7.8 kilometres patching. I'd call it gravel reshooting. Was done under either operational budget, hello, here we go again, or the storm damage, so storm damage again. So again, we're using maintenance funds to do capital work. Again, that is just a no-no. No gravel reshooting was done under the capital budget due to have been allocated by resolution to Taylor Flat Road. Well, there you go. That tells you that your answer A was probably not correct. So if you're saying to me it was done at a maintenance budget or storm damage budget, again, can we please have a breakdown of how much money was spent on those roads out of the storm budget? And could we please have some understanding of what the guidelines around that storm damage money are in regards to, my understanding was repair roads and things back to where they were. We repaired Cocoa Movable Lane, what's called, sorry, name's got me, 12.5 kilometres, the entire length of the road. Surely the storm didn't wipe out 12 kilometres. It may have, I'll stand corrected, but it's very hard to take on board at the moment that was done by storm damage for that road to be done. Or if we're doing 12.5, I think, if I go back to the other figures, over about 30 kilometres of gravel reshooting, the staff told us that's been done in the former BOOROWA area with no budget. We've done 36 kilometres in the former Young area, and I'm told it's cost $560,000. I'm not talking about $10,000 to $20,000 here. It's a lot of money. We as councillors need to know where that money's coming from and where it's been spent. Because I don't know about anyone else, but when I get asked the question, I say I've got concerns. And there's people asking questions because the gravel road network, according to them, isn't improving very much in this region. I assured them that we fought very hard to get $644,000 in the gravel reshooting budget for the former Young area because of the length of road work. It doesn't appear to be happening. So again, can I have the answers to those questions, please, in regard to those fundings? And sorry, wrong terminology. I would like to see a detailed report on the storm funding damage budget, just where it was spent and the costings of the works done in the former Young Council area, especially the last 6.7 kilometres that at the moment I'm being told cost over $23,000 a kilometre. Just not acceptable, I don't think. We'll leave it at that, and hopefully when I get the next round of answers, councillors, I won't have to bore you and keep you this long going through it again, but these answers, there's some school teachers in the room, you can nearly tick it off. You get a fail on those answers.
So, through you, Madam Mayor, could I recommend the recommendation is to receive and note the report. I would recommend B, a further report be brought back to council to address the further questions
with raised. The answers to the questions raised.
Yep.
Be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so you can put that up.
And Mr. General Manager, you can put a dot point C there if you like. It's been said in the chamber tonight that we're using maintenance funds for capital works. I don't have to mention that to you again. I think you know what that means. That's a no-no. It needs to be addressed.
Understood.
Thank you.
So Councillor Flannery, I believe you seconded that motion. You're okay with those words? Thank you. We don't have C's now. But the question, when I could answer that as part of all the questions raised, not just one particular one. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, the resolution now, or the motion as it stands, is A, receive and note the report, and B, a further report be brought back to council for all questions raised. And C, was there a C? There wasn't, just a B. Okay, right, okay. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on now to the second question with notice, budget variations. 13.2, 23.187A, and the recommendation is there that we receive and note the report. Can I have a mover? Councillor Flannery, since it's yours, and second, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you for the report. I don't know that it's addresses the concerns I have. I mean, the key question was, why are we having such significant budget variations in the time frame that were presented to us in the QBR? And whilst there's answers there as to what the increase or decreases were, I don't understand how we get such big variations, and they are just presented to council in a QBR, seemingly as though they just fell out of the sky. It goes to, I guess, our record keeping and our planning, and to highlight one, the materials contract, the $4.5 million increase in materials and contractors associated with Transport for New South Wales increased work and flood has a combined value of 4.5 million. I mean, it just tells me that what we got told at the QBR, that it went up by 4.5 million. It doesn't give anything just to the nature of the materials, whether we forward planned and purchased the materials that we knew for the work we were going to do. It really doesn't tell me anything, to be quite honest.
CFO, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah. What I've tried to highlight in the report is that at the time of setting budgets, it's what information might be known or not known. So issues around what material costs are going to increase from 1 July, 1 year to another year is obviously something that one would not necessarily be aware of. But a number of things I put in there were grants or other items that have come in since the budget was prepared. Some were right quite late in the financial year, but it seems like you're asking a different question now.
No, I'm not. Well, I can go back to my notes as to
the note was, please provide with a detailed report with the next meeting on why such considerable budget variations are occurring.
Correct.
I've tried to highlight there.
And you've highlighted what they are, not why.
Well, in some cases, with grants that arrived at June 30, I can't explain that. They come from the government, for argument's sake. And increases in the RMS funding, again, came in mid-June that I think I've highlighted there in general fund income. Any other things there? Interest income, well, yes, inflation's gone down today, I heard. What the interest rates will be between now and 12 months' time, I can't predict. We set a budget for that, but it's obviously moved. Now, whether interest rates will come back down again the next financial year will be an issue. I've highlighted there increase in operating grants, and in fact, I see there the emergency flood work, and I think that funding also came in very late in June for different claims. The Bondabo Bridge, we've actually incurred costs, and that money has just come in this week, which I had highlighted, I think, in the March QBR. So we're sitting there without that cash, whilst we had, because of the milestone, because of weather, conditions. So, I mean, I can go back through this report and try and highlight, then put an explanation on it if you want, in terms of when we were aware of it or when we budgeted for it. And this, obviously, for the budget for the next financial year, I'm in a similar position where we forecast. Yes, we did receive notification for next year's budget of a 4.5% increase in wages. We had heard rumours, and that thing came in, I think, on the 26th of June. Now, we factored that figure in. Again, that could have moved either way, but we believe that would be the figure, for example, in next year's budget that we're factoring in for wages. I mean, some of these things are moving targets when we're trying to estimate the budget for the current year and the following year. I mean, I can certainly try and put narrative around each of these things about insurance costs, for example, that I've highlighted there. Unbeknown to us, they've gone up again this year. We just received the insurance bills last week, and they've been processed. Now we're up to 1.6 million. But I mean, we will bring up, and we'll often with the statewide, we bring up when we get a forecast figure, and then it changes. Obviously based on when their actuaries are going through insurance policies and looking at the number of claims and so forth, and other factors that they take into consideration. I mean, the depreciation cost that I've estimated there, that could go up by mid-August when Asset Val are in there now doing the valuations on, which haven't been done in detail for 5 years across plant and equipment. I wouldn't be surprised if that depreciation figure actually increases by the time we get to literally the last entry that we'll put in the financial statements for 30 June, which I'm anticipating to close up by the end of August this year. So, I mean, I can certainly try and, yes, there's been things around weather with some of the grants, as you're probably aware, where by December, our grants, performance in our grants and roadwork was very low, and the capitalisation of wages are totally different from the previous year. So, I mean, we do our best at trying to forecast these numbers and budget for these numbers, but there's things there that are out of our control as well, and we don't find out about these things till the last minute. We've highlighted there that we've removed, as a result, the first 6 months, our capitalisation of wages, I think, was only about 800 compared to 1.3, I think it was for the previous year. Weather conditions, they prevail. So, and as a result, I've highlighted there that we've then removed the number of those capital programs. I mean, I can certainly go through and try and highlight.
Thank you for your response. The one response that we still haven't received yet, and I've highlighted a number of times, we had a state government contract, and it was in a QBR for the March, I'm pretty sure, it might have been December, that we were $428,000 over budget on a state government contract, and I specifically asked about it. I haven't received, nor has council received a response on that.
I don't recall that one, but I'll certainly look into it and provide a response for it. 428 grand, you're saying, was it? I don't recall that, actually.
Proximity.
I'll go through the minutes and have a with Deidre and have a look at it, and then I'll provide a response. I don't recall that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Armstrong. Ingram, pardon me. I've been.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor
Ingram. I didn't
Ingram.
ask the question.
Beg your pardon?
I didn't ask the question.
No, I know, and I have been. I'm trying very hard. Councillor Ingram.
Well, question or comment. A couple of things. The first thing is don't go predicting interest rates. Director, the last bloke who did that didn't get his contract renewed. So I'd start away.
I certainly won't. That's the comment I was making. If you can predict those for me in the next 12 months, well, I'll gladly listen to you.
The next question I have, just reading about the income, and I don't know if it was mentioned before or not, the 4.4 million increase in that, and it goes on to say that promoted works for Transport for New South Wales being 4.3, and when we go to the expenditure column, and it's an increase of 4.5 million increase in materials and contracts.
Yes, that's correct.
I think it's been asked before, the question about utilising our machinery and our men in the Yass Valley Shire and different shires other than Hilltops. Not a bad idea if you're making money, but if you're saying the work's coming in and you're making 4.4 in one end and you're paying out 4.5 in costs in the other end, are we actually making any money doing it? Or are we just filling in time and going further downhill?
I can certainly provide that information, but yes, I've asked internally sought that information myself to make sure that we were making money. That grant that was received late is actually a not-for-profit grant, but Transport for New South Wales understand that obviously we're not in it to make a loss, and we're not in it to gouge, if you like. So, but the information I have, I can provide that in another report. The information I have is that we're not making a loss on Transport for New South, the RMS funding.
That'd be appreciated, given my concerns in regard to the gravel reshooting and the numbers being so much bigger with this work. Some confidence would be gained out of that. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's increased to 10 million this year, by the way. And we got that notification that came to the council meeting literally last minute in June.
Well, two questions. What is a not-for-profit grant, and have we been advised of the work for the 10.3 million? And what budget? In fact, I think I asked at the last meeting, well, I wasn't here at the last meeting, the previous meeting, I asked what budgetary work did we do before we tendered for RMS work? So I haven't had an answer to that one yet. I must have missed writing it down.
I'll have to take that on notice. I'll have a chat with the Director of Infrastructure and GM about that. You're talking about in terms, the 10.3 million came in very late. In fact, I think it was just before the June meeting when we got that notification. I'm sure that we took that to the council meeting.
Director of Infrastructure, comment around the budgeting around the RMS work. That's the question, Councillor Flannery.
Yes, I asked for a report on what budgetary work. In fact, it went up on the board and we all voted on it. So it's probably in the minutes somewhere from the May council meeting. But specifically, what's a not-for-profit grant? Number one, and number two, well, it seems that we've been advised we are receiving 10.3 million. What is that for? Is that already in the bank by the sounds of
it? Just to clarify, it's not determined a not-for-profit grant. If I use that expression, I've just forgotten the exact words in the RMS contract. It basically says it's supposed to be a break-even arrangement, but in fact, yes, we do make money out of the current arrangement. But I've forgotten. I can give you the contract. Basically says, I don't remembers, but the contract basically says it's
CFO, I just interject there. The terms around the not-for-profit type part is, it's not pure economic profit as you make a profit like a private business. However, you can recover your overheads as applicable, and therefore you make return, inverted commas, upon the recovery of overheads by undertaking a contract that otherwise the RMS would have to go to private industry to do, where we recover monies in that way, where we recover more than cost through direct costs. We recover some of our direct costs that otherwise we would not be able to recover. So we can attribute some of our costs to the contract that otherwise we would not be able to recover from any other source, and that is the return.
I assume, therefore, you're referring to depreciation, because I can't imagine what other costs you would incur unless your plant was actually working.
Oh, there's other overhead costs such as insurance and so on that should be applied against that equipment, etc.
Look, at this stage, I'm just at this point. Some of what we're talking about, we're edging towards commercial and confidence information. So if we want to,
go
into this, we'd go into confidential to further discuss that.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just for you.
Yes.
Perhaps the General Manager might be able to provide us with a report that details the way in which these costs are determined.
Happy to provide that in confidential, because we would touch in areas of commercial and confidence.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy with that, Councillor? All right. Okay, we've had a fair bit of discussion. Let's put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Now, I need someone.
Before we move on, I did actually ask, do we have that $10 million in the bank? Was the answer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the 10.
Yes, we do, yeah.
Well, the $10.3 million in relation to the federal assistance grants, we do have that money in there. Then in relation to the 10.3 in relation to the estimated contractual arrangement, no, we do not have that in the bank. It's not an advance payment on work to be undertaken with RMS. Thank you.
Righto. Now, I need a mover for us to move into confidential. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and the seconder, Councillor Piper. Okay, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Through you,
Manager?
Through you, Madam Mayor, two matters were discussed and voted upon by councillors. In relation to 5.2-23/109 notice of motion proposed land acquisition, the motion was put and lost. In relation to 15.3-23/190, appointment of community member to Hilltops Council Biosecurity Weeds Advisory Committee, it was resolved to receive and note the report and approve the appointment of Jeremy Webber as a community member of the Hilltops Council Biosecurity Weeds Advisory Committee. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. General Manager. It is now about 2 minutes to 8, and so I will close this meeting and thank everybody for their attendance and also, as always, for your work for the community. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.